I wanted to go and put together a video because one, because it's Friday. Who doesn't love Fridays? And it's a real Friday. It's like a sunny Friday. It feels like summer outside. It feels like it's a breath of fresh air. I was having a chat with one of my friends, and the topic came up about how we recharge and what we're doing in the midst of all this to stay calm, and what are some, I don't want to call it strategies, but what are some things that we're doing to be able to keep our mind at ease, or what are some things we do to help soothe the craziness. I don't know about you, but for me, something that we've talked about before in the past couple of videos is meditation. I've talked before. I think it was last week we chatted about what meditation means to me, or what the impact was to me. And another, and then in last week's video, we had a chat about the method of how, like how to meditate, the actual going through the motions. And so we've talked about the impacts, and we've talked about how I meditate. But what I haven't talked about is, I don't want to call it the reason for meditating, the lead up to meditation. Some of the things that can cause the need for meditation can be wildly different. And by wildly different, I mean things can be all over the board. Day to day changes can be up and down, left and right. Things can be a hot mess, and a roller coaster of emotion is what I'm trying to describe. And for me, no more can there be something clear and present than just being honest for a minute. There was a few weeks ago. I can't remember the exact day, but I remember I was distracted, and one thing I ended up doing was I was filling up a basin of water, and you think it would be easy, like put water in a basin, and it's the humidifier, and so the humidifier is filling it up, and the basin filled up, and in the middle of filling it up, my brain switched off, and I started focusing on something else, and I started thinking about, I started stressing, I started getting filled with anxiety, and one thing led to another in the spiraling, I would say the alcoholic mind, but like the busyness of my brain, if left unchecked, can cause pretty massive damage. And I ended up going and filling up this basin so much, so heavy, that it became too heavy for, I don't want to say for me to hold, but it slipped. And when it slipped, my instinct immediately went to go catch it. And when I went to go catch it, this huge basin of water, I was right on the sink. So my hand got caught in between the basin and the sink, and it broke my finger. And I ended up, one, I felt the pain like right away. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And the adrenaline kicked in. I was pushing myself to fill up this thing, and I was like, I gotta go, go, go. Everything's on a schedule, and rush, rush, rush. And in putting myself in that anxious mode, in that anxiety filled moment, I lost track of safety, and I lost track of what was important. I let myself become distracted, and I let the anxiety, the stress of the moment, the build up. And I saw this Instagram live by Simon Sinek, and I love this guy. He's amazing. If you haven't checked him out, definitely go check him out, because he did a Facebook Live, and he talked about there are people who are really, really good at dealing with things in the moment. And then there are some people who will delay dealing with things. And if we put that aside, that doesn't mean we've dealt with it. That just means we've delayed dealing with it. And if left unchecked, we're going to eventually have to confront that anxiety, that frustration, that resentment, that negativity. And if we just power our way through things, that might be a way to do it, but that's not a way to deal with it. That's just a way to like delay it. And those people that are still in the moment, they still have to manage that stress. They still have to deal with it. And when I ended up just not dealing with things in the moment, when I was filling up that basin of water, when I was filling up the humidifier, that's when I was processing it. That's when I was going through those motions of like flushing thing, like event after event. How am I going to manage this? Okay, I'm going to check that box, go over here and go do this. And then after that, I'm going to go worry about this. And I'm very action oriented and very detailed oriented. And when I was going through those check boxes, the last thing I thought about was the thing I was doing. And what happened? My hand got caught. One smashed finger later, and I was in a world of pain and I was in a world of hurt. I would call it an accident, but what it is it's an incident. It's an incident where safety was not looked after, and what caused the pain was that I lost track of what I was working on, and the result was this pain, and the result was just this flash of I would call it like anger. Like I was like, how can I let this happen? You know, what was I gonna do? How could I? And it was a very sobering moment. It was a very sobering thought to suddenly, I don't want to say be put in my place, but it was suddenly to now be presented with those events that I wasn't managing, and in allowing myself to become distracted by things I wasn't dealing with earlier, I began to wonder, as I was holding my hand, like, what am I gonna do? Get the ice cubes, and as I'm wrapping it, after I've dealt with it, once you're confronted with pain, you have no choice but to manage it. So I managed the pain, isolated it, and then as I was kind of wounding my pride, I ended up looking back and I was like, hey, what were things that were leading up to this? What were things that I was focusing on that wasn't the present moment? What was the stressors I wasn't looking at? Was there any opportunity that I could have mitigated this? Was there some onus of responsibility that I can take on this moment to saying, yes, this is me, this is what I've done, and here's what I plan to do about it? And when I looked at that, when I took a deep breath, when I removed myself from the moment, I ended up going and appreciating that, yes, I wasn't looking after myself mentally, and in doing so, I caused myself pain in the moment. Oh, and so when I caused myself pain in the moment, there was no one else to blame but me. So there was no one else to take responsibility but me. And when I took a look back at the stress I wasn't dealing with, was because I was telling myself, I'm just going to deal with it. I'll soldier through this. And while that got me through that moment, it did not get me through this moment. Well, I did, but except my hand was in pain. So once I started looking at what were some distractions I was doing, or what am I filling my time with that isn't adding, I don't want to call it value, but what is some things that are distracting me, and what are some things that are causing me to lose focus? Because what this is an example of is losing focus to what's important. And safety there's nothing more important than safety, first off. So what was causing me to not focus on safety? Well, it was distractions. Okay, so what is a distraction? A distraction is something that is not adding value. Once I came to that idea, that event crisis point, I was then looking at, well, let's make a list of all the things that I'm working on right now in my day-to-day life. What are some things that are, one, not adding value? Two, what is taking up a lot of my time? And three, is there some time management that I can input to help mitigate some of this, to off-put some of this? Because I don't want to damage the rest of my fingers. I don't want to damage the rest of me. My pride's hurt enough as it is. So I started taking a hard look at what I'm doing. And it's not an easy process to dig through and categorize, label, and I don't want to say compartmentalize, but when I go in and I say, here are the things that are adding value, everything I put on that list I think is adding value as I write them down. But the reality is not everything I'm spending time on is value added. Yes, I'm spending time on it, but does it mean it might have added value in those moments as I play the Candy Crush game, but after 10, 20, 30 minutes, if I zone into watching the news for 2 hours, do I get a heartfelt reward out of that 2 hours? No, I'm probably more wound up and stressful than I was before. Okay, so is 2 hours added to watching the news worth the time that I put in? In my books, no, I did not. In my action items list of making a making a summary of what I'm working on here, and so I went through things like watching TV, Netflix, the news, YouTube videos, anything related to that I'm using my phone for, anything I'm taking away. And if I'm playing Candy Crush games, is 2 hours of Candy Crush value added? Well, maybe not. Is 2 hours of the news worth that? No. Is okay, what if I'm riding my bike for 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Well, that's going to be adding more value than wasting it on other things. So here's an example of how to break things apart where I, yes, hurt myself because I wasn't paying attention, but I also realized in that moment the myriad that long list of things that are not adding value. Well, let's break down my day and everything from waking up in the morning, the first thing I'm doing till the 10 seconds before I fall asleep. And in managing my time and listing it all out, no sacred cows on this. Like nothing is for sure guaranteed to always be on that list. But as soon as I start having those sobering thoughts of what is adding value, what is taking away from my time, what's not contributing to what I hold dear, and to not be afraid to remove those items or just reorganize it or just move things around. So what I would here's an example where let's say I'm taking 2 hours a day to something we've been talking about so far is 2 hours of watching the news or YouTube, or if I go down that YouTube recommended list, you start with the news, but then 2 hours later you end up watching reviews on, and like, you know what I mean? There's all sorts of easiness to get sucked into. So when it comes to managing that, I started to hold myself accountable to saying, rather than do 2 hours or an hour of playing a game that leads into YouTube, that leads into 2 hours, why don't I just manage that to saying, I'm going to start my day and I'm going to shift my focus away from things that I think are, I don't want to call them not important. I'm going to still give them that time, but I'm going to manage that time to being something effective by saying it's going to be 30 minutes at the beginning of my day. I'm going to wake up, and in the first 30 minutes of waking up, I'm going to catch up on the Prime Minister's speech. I'm going to go and focus on checking the news sites. I check the Google Trends, or I check the recommended list, and I have a hard stop. So at the 30-minute mark, rather than spend 2 hours at the end of my day before I fall asleep to get all stressed out about watching the news, why don't I spend the first 30 minutes of my day with a hard stop at 30 minutes to soak in as much as I can, but then not allow myself to be totally taken control over, to let that stress run wild. Because as soon as I let stress run wild, that's where accidents happen. That's where incidents take place. So for me, by managing that time and cutting that time short, so if I'm only committed to then spending that 30 minutes on the news and playing games or whatever iPhone apps I'm going to use, spend that social media check in the first 30 minutes. And then after that, be comfortable and confident that I've allocated time and I'm not going to give it any more. I move on and I have the rest of my day, do my work, comfortably go out, ride my bike, go for a run, go for a walk, these small things. But then when I'm done work, I'm not going to like spend that 2 hours just falling back into those old patterns, those old habits. For me, meditation has come from being able to be brave enough to break apart what I've been doing out of habit and being open to the idea of starting new habits. And this is where we're jumping into having calm.com, or the other good one is Headspace. Headspace, those guys are amazing. They have it works with the smart assistants. So if you use Alexa or Google or Siri, they all integrate with Headspace. And then with calm.com, they're giving away 30 days. And so I've got the link down below. If 30 days of meditation is something you're interested in, I highly encourage you to take a look at it. There's all sorts of meditations out there, be it that you're advanced or if you're a beginner like me. Having someone walk you through it can be a huge milestone, like a baby steps. When it comes to meditating, no two meditations are the same. So how you meditate may be different than how I meditate. We talked before about doing the dishes, cleaning, vacuuming, or drawing, or taking time to have fun with art. What I want to do is change those moments where I'm stressed into labeling them into something different. So yes, I'm stressed. I might feel stressful, but as soon as I act on that stress, it becomes an opportunity for an incident. It becomes an opportunity where things can go wrong. And so there might be stressful moments, but as soon as I act on that stress, now I'm giving it some physical form. Now there's risk involved of damaging myself, harming my hand, like I did before, where I pinched my hand and it crushed my little, what is this, the tip of my finger. It turned purple. It was broken. It hurt. It took forever to heal. There was a lot of pride damaged in that. Nobody wants that. I don't want you to have that. I don't want to have more of that. So being brave enough for me to jump in, label my day, categorize everything I do, and then make an action and items list of, one, is it adding value? Two, is it taking up more time than the benefit it's giving? Three, am I strong enough to want to remove that time or reallocate that time and move it around? So if I shift that news to being the beginning of my day, I'm not going to let the news take over the rest of my day. And this way, I'm not going to fall back into old habits. I'm not going to fall back into playing endless games or watching endless YouTube videos or another Netflix series. There's a whole bunch of great content out there to consume, and it's easier now more than ever to fall back into it. So the challenge is to be able to set a new standard, set a new idea, to push forward and have something more constructive with my time. So when it comes to being calm, I find that by removing a lot of distractions, removes that opportunity of being hurt. It removes the opportunity of falling into old habits. It removes the opportunity of, I don't want to say damaging my day, but allows me to be more focused in my day for the time I do have. So I'm more impactful. So I can follow up with more friends and more family. I can have fun and invest my time that I do have into something way more productive and way more engaging and way more rewarding. You know, if I can spend that hour and a half that I saved from watching the news onto catching up with friends and family, that's going to recharge my batteries more than the news will. The news is going to be there regardless if I watch it or not. You know, I'm not saying don't pay attention to live events, but what I'm saying is paying attention to what's important to you and what helps calm you, and helping identifying what those stressors are or what those distractions are for you, just labeling them and finding out what they are, being brave enough to dig in to discover what that is for you, and to be able to take steps and action them. That's not an easy thing what I just laid out there. Those are like identifying what it is, categorizing them, and then being able to move on or move through or just eliminate those distractions. You know, there are podcasts that I love, and I love listening to them. They make me laugh. There's all sorts of great YouTube channels that I follow, But I know that if I follow them and watch them, how I feel afterwards is like all riled up. I'll be all excited. And not that excitement is bad, but if it's all filled with negativity, frustration, or if the language is something that's off putting, those things can add up. And no time more than ever is it important to paying attention to what my mind focuses on. And if I put my attention on something, it's good that will grow. And if I fill my life with negativity, frustration, resentment, I can't be surprised that that's what's going to happen. And so I can't be surprised if I fill my life with distractions, that my life won't be fulfilling and I will cause more of that angst in my life. And that's where injuring my hand comes in. It only takes one accident to cause damage, harm. So I don't want that. So I take my life and I've moved into a much more positive light. I made a list of everything that I do and I've placed a value in it and saying, if this is not adding value, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And there's more important things that I can do with my time that cause more reward. I don't know if this is something you can identify with. If it is, let me know. I'm having fun with making these videos. I'm not sure if you're gaining a lot of value, but if you are, I enjoy that. I love catching up on some of these comments. You guys send me messages all the time, and I want to celebrate that. Speaking of comments, I see that Jenna's here. Hello, Jenna. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out. Jenna is saying, I hope it was a long time ago because ouch. Yes. I wish it was a long time ago. Jenna, it was probably like a month ago or something. More, maybe a month, almost 2 months ago. I'm not sure. Time and space are bending now. Like it is, until someone mentioned it was Friday, I totally forgot it was Friday. So it wasn't that long ago when I did injure myself. It was a sobering thought. It was a sobering lesson. But I'm much more now because of those events. I'm much more clear. I'm much more I have more intention with what I'm doing. And if I'm spending time on things, I've made sure that it's added value. All right, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you in another video. If you have questions or you want to reach out and say hello, definitely drop a comment, send me a message. I look forward to seeing you guys in another video. All right, you take care. Have fun. Bye.